Hey there, welcome to the Happy Homestead. I'm Amanda. Today I'm going to take you along and show you how I make my favorite dinner from my childhood. My mom is a good cook. She had, I'm sure she'll see this and just love that I say this, she had a limited repertoire, mind you, and probably most moms do even today. We did meatloaf, we did, shepherd's pie, that was a big one. We didn't really do tacos or roasted chicken or pot roast, some of those things. What I remember, tuna casserole with like cornbread on top. Oh, I've never made that and I never will. I love you, Mom. Yeah, tuna casserole, shepherd's pie, meatloaf, pork chops, fish sticks. That was another big one. My kids get a laugh. They crack up huge about that one. But there was always, I've got my gloves on. There was always one dish that I consistently looked forward to. And even today, so many years later, I still do. It's one of my favorite things that she makes. I now make it for my family. I've adapted it a little bit to make it, a little bit more nutritious and healthy as possible. But it's basically a chicken casserole with a stuffing on top. I'm gonna get this chicken out of the oven because I want it to start cooling quick, and then I'll tell you more about it. So I roasted this at 350 for about an hour and a half. It's a relatively small chicken. It was only a little over 3 pounds, but it looks fantastic. So I want that to cool so I can get the meat. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you first how she made it and then how I'm adapting and changing it just a bit. She would always start with chicken breasts, and she is gonna kill me. She'd boil them. Maybe that was the thing. This is like the 80s, 90s. She'd boil the chicken breasts and then bring them out once they were fully cooked and chop them up. She would mix in sour cream and usually a cream of either celery or mushroom soup. So the two of those combined, the cream of soup and then sour cream. She would take little cans of like sliced mushrooms and add some mushrooms in it and mix that all together, right? So the cooked kind of cubed diced chicken, the sour cream, the cream of soup, and some mushrooms. Put that in like a 9x13 casserole pan, and then she would use stovetop. I don't know why I'm having the hardest time to not laugh. I think it's just so funny because it feels so like typical kind of mom meals from that era, that decade. But yeah, she would take stovetop, make the stovetop kind of separately, right? Either in a bowl in the microwave, which I was addicted to stovetop, mind you. So I know exactly how to make it even today. You take your canister, empty it into a bowl, and you add in water and butter and microwave it, or you could do it in the stove pot, in a pot on the stove. And then that was your stuffing. And so then she would take the stuffing that was already kind of put together and made and crumble that on top of the casserole. So everything is cooked. We're just kind of heating it through and getting it nice and bubbly. Then she'd put it in the oven, I don't know, 350, 375, maybe 30 minutes, right? It's already cooked. It is so good. Okay, so good. But here we are today in 2025. This is my household. I am very anal about the food that we eat and what I bring into this house that we don't grow and make ourselves. So we're ditching the cream of soup. And now what I do is I will use chicken stock, just a little bit of chicken stock, and I'll make a roux with that. So I still use sour cream. I use my Nancy's organic sour cream that I get from Azure Standard. And then I'll mix that with the roux that I make, with chicken stock, a little bit of milk, and then obviously the flour to kind of thicken that up. I will also add mushrooms, either canned, but today I have so many homegrown dried shiitake mushrooms. Such a blessing, but I'm gonna actually hydrate and chop and use some of those. And then instead of stovetop, surprise, surprise, we're not using stovetop, I'm going to make our own stuffing. A couple of days ago, I did go ahead and make 2 loaves of sourdough bread. And so we're gonna take some of the bread, chop it. We're gonna saute onions, garlic, and celery on the stovetop with some butter and sage and parsley and herbs. Put it all together in a bowl, make our stuffing, and then we'll top that in a casserole, right? So I wanted to roast a chicken. I didn't feel like using a chicken breast or chicken thighs that I have in the freezer. I really wanted to roast an entire chicken and then kind of pick that meat off and use that. And honestly, the drippings that are in the bottom of this pan are perfect to add into our stuffing or even our roux, right? It's just gonna add so much more flavor. The other thing I do now that she kind of actually has adopted and does also is I add some broccoli. So I'm gonna get some frozen broccoli out of the freezer and I just kind of throw that in as well. So it's the chicken, the mushrooms, the broccoli with the creamy sauce topped with the stuffing. All right, while I'm still waiting for that chicken to cool, I'm gonna start with making my stuffing. So I'm gonna take some celery and onion and put it in my cast iron skillet and saute that on the stove just to soften everything up. I'm gonna add salt, pepper, sage, thyme, parsley, maybe some oregano, and get that nice and mixed together, and then we'll chop our bread. One of the things I have been doing here in the kitchen is really starting to be more aware of plastic. And so you may notice, if you've been following the channel at all for some period of time, I'm chopping this very finely though, guys, just so you know, is that I switched out my plastic cutting board for a wooden one. Now, it's so hard to get rid of plastic altogether. It's, dare I say, virtually impossible, because plastics are everywhere in our life. But I want to make the changes that I know I can make, and by using a wooden cutting board, right? That's a small little change that hopefully will make some big differences over the course of our lives. And I just bought this on Etsy. I probably could have found somebody local, but I didn't really have the patience to do that. I wanted to just get one. And so I went on Etsy and found one from an artisan. And I'm very, very happy with it. I'm just chopping even the leaves, right? The leaves add so much flavor. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. One thing is that I don't always measure. I think measuring is an absolute necessity with baking, right? Because baking to me is science. Cooking is an art. So I don't often measure when I'm cooking meals and making dinners and whatnot. So hopefully you'll be able to maybe release that need of yourself as you go forward in time in your cooking journey, and just feel it from your heart. So I'm doing half of an onion for no other reason than that is what I had in the refrigerator. And I also have really big onions. These are from Azure Standard because I have a hard time growing my own onions. I'm just doing medium heat, adding about 2 tablespoons of butter, ground pepper, Redmond real salt, and a little bit of chopped garlic. So I had all of our garlic hanging in our front room, which was the formal dining room of the house, and over the last 3 to 4 years became our pantry because we didn't need a formal dining room. And so I had all of our garlic that we had grown from 2024 kind of braided and hanging on my shelves. Probably about 3-ish, maybe 4 weeks ago, I noticed that it was sprouting and it was starting to get a little soft in some places, some of the bulbs. So I went through and painstakingly peeled every clove, kind of discarded the ones that weren't worth saving, and put it all through the food processor and put it in jars with olive oil. This is something I have done previously, but I wanted to have some garlic whole hanging and available for use. Now, over the last, I guess 9 months now, because I harvested my garlic in July of 2024, over the last 9 months, I reach for this. I keep it in the refrigerator. So the olive oil is kind of solidified, right, around the garlic. So I shove the garlic in, put olive oil in, and take a chopstick and move it around, kind of like you would do with canning, to release any of those air pockets and air bubbles. And then I keep it in the fridge. So I've got 3 of these in the refrigerator now. It is one of the best hacks in the kitchen. No lie. I am doing this year in and year out from now on. Sure, it's nice to have some fresh garlic, and there will be a need for it at some point. I haven't come across it yet. This has really worked. But I just love not having to chop it every time, and just to take a scoop out when I need it. I'm gonna start adding in my herbs. This is ground or rubbed sage. I will probably use a lot more herbs once I mix everything together with the bread too. This is parsley from our garden. And thyme. Okay, while that is still sauteing, I left the cast iron skillet on the burner, but I actually turned the burner off. Just letting that soften and kind of come together. I have almost a full loaf. I've probably taken out 3 pieces in the last couple of days. I'm gonna start with probably all of this. I have another loaf in their fridge because when I make bread, I always make 2 at a time, but I don't think I'm gonna need it. So we're just gonna start with this, chop it up. You can also just like take your fingers and crumble it. You don't want it too big chopped. You don't want it too stiff, right? If you think about biting into stuffing, it's supposed to be soft and have that texture that you really like. So I'm gonna start with chopping this, and then we'll add the vegetables. So this bread is half, what is it? Half kamut, I think. Yeah, half kamut and half red, hard red wheat. Trying to not make a huge mess. Are you a person that kind of cleans afterwards or cleans as you go? Because I am a clean as I go. I cannot stand to make a mess and then watch it, see it, and like have to work around it. I constantly have to pick up after myself and clean as I go. I have also done this, like making the stuffing, and then kind of got it all put together and put it in a bag and then in the freezer. And that way I always have kind of stuffing ready to go in the freezer, which has actually been a great time saver for, you know, Thanksgiving and holiday meals. So if you ever have bread that is starting to go bad, you know, needs to be used up, and you're just kind of at a loss with what to do, I mean, there's tons of options. Breadcrumbs, croutons, but stuffing is another option that, you know, it's one of those things that when you need it, you need it. And you don't always have it. Okay, I'm gonna add in our garlic, onion, and celery. And I'm just gonna start adding a lot more herbs as well. There's a lot of bread in here, and I want it to truly be seasoned nicely. All right, we need some liquid. So I'm actually gonna take the juices from the Dutch oven and add them in as well. Carefully. Okay, I know that I'm going to need a lot more liquid, so I went and pulled out a quart of chicken stock. Love that sound when I open a canned item. I'm gonna put probably half in here, so about 2 cups worth, and save the rest to make some of the cream of roux that we're gonna need. So if you wanted to make the different components of this meal in advance, you can. It's so easy to do and does make the, you know, the whole process a lot easier as far as time saving. You can have the stuffing made in advance, the chicken made in advance, and even the cream of soup made in advance too. So I can still see some liquid down in that bowl. That's a great thing because this bread is going to just soak it up really well. I'm gonna let this sit because obviously we don't need it yet, but it is ready. So these are some of the shiitakes. I still have probably a whole nother gallon left. I'm gonna use all of these. So you have 2 ways to do this. If you're using dried mushrooms, you can just break them up here, which I'm gonna do, or you can hydrate them and then chop them. I find that breaking them when they're dry is just a lot easier. So we've been growing our own shiitakes, gosh, probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 years now. I've always loved mushrooms and always kind of wanted to do it. And so the logs that we have now that these came from, it was an oak tree that our neighbor took down, and he was like, do you want the logs? I'm like, yes, thank you, yes please and thank you. And we did that. I was actually talking to my husband about this a couple of months ago. It's probably been 5 years. Oak is a very dense wood, and so it takes a lot longer for the mycelium to truly kind of use up all of the wood, basically, you know, get through it. It takes a lot longer for it to get through it, which means you get mushrooms for more years, like year after year. Whereas something like sweet gum, they go through it probably in like 2 to 3 years, and so you'll get great mushrooms, but you'll have to re-inoculate logs a little bit more often. We are running out of probably runway with the logs that we have. So this fall, I've kind of already put it on my mental, did I just do this? My mental to-do list. We need to inoculate some more logs this fall. I'll be sure to film that when I do. I can't remember if I have a video on that or not because it has been a while since I've done it, but I'll do one this fall. You want to inoculate in the fall or winter when the tree is not producing, right? And you don't want to get a dead tree. It needs to be a live tree that you cut down, cut into manageable sized logs, and then let the logs sit for just about 2 weeks so they lose some of the moisture, but not all, and then you do the inoculation. And you want to do it in the winter or fall because that's when the tree is not putting any energy up into branches, leaves, flowering, right? The energy is coming back down. All right, these are broken up well. I'm just gonna get some water in here. So I'm gonna let these sit. These will only, because they're also broken in pieces, they won't take very long. I also need to go get the broccoli out of the freezer, and then we'll start taking apart the chicken. All right, the chicken is cooled enough. I'm just getting some food safe gloves on. I've always wanted to do this, ready? Yeah, that didn't work. We're gonna piece apart the chicken. Because this is a smaller chicken, I'm anticipating just using all of the meat. Depending upon what you're using, if you're using boneless, skinless breasts or boneless, skinless thighs, and you're cooking them separately, you know, you can figure out how much meat you want. But I'm gonna estimate that I'm gonna have maybe 1.5 pounds of meat here. I am going to be saving anything left over because I will be making stock. Don't ever cook a whole chicken and not save what's left over because it can make the best stock. And talk about, you know, hacks within the kitchen. When I was talking about the chopped garlic and oil, making your own stock is one of the best kitchen hacks as well. It is a huge money saver. It is better for you. It is better flavor, all of the above. All right, last but not least, we're gonna make our roux. And a roux always starts with butter and flour. So I'm gonna take probably about 4 tablespoons, half a stick of butter, put it in my small saucepan here and let that melt. And then I'm gonna add equal amounts of flour. So about 4 tablespoons of flour. Really whisk that together as it's melting and coming together. Then I will slowly alternate stock and milk. Stock would make a traditional roux, but milk helps do the cream of. And I keep saying cream of because it can be cream of celery, cream of mushroom, right? You can kind of add those things in. I'm not adding it in because we're just adding it to our casserole. All right, our butter is just about melted. I'm gonna add in 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. And now we're gonna whisk that together. And basically the flour kind of absorbs all of the fat from the butter. And it's gonna look kind of pasty. Once you see that fully absorbed, this is now where we're gonna start adding in some liquid. And you keep whisking. This process is going to seem tedious, especially if making a roux is new to you. It's gonna feel like, oh my gosh, I have to stand at the stove and I gotta whisk and I gotta do these things. It really doesn't take very long to do this. And I only added maybe 1/4 to 1/2 cup of stock. You never wanna add too much at a time because it could take longer to thicken up and it may not actually thicken up. It's really all about the ratio. All right, so it's thickening up. You can kind of see that, right? I'm gonna add some milk. I'm alternating with milk and stock. And I'm just gonna keep this going until I feel like I have what I need, measurement-wise. I'm gonna add in some pepper. Redmond real salt. So is it easier to go buy a cream of soup? Sure. But there's probably a lot of extra things in that that you don't necessarily want. All right, this is thickened up again. I'm just gonna add the rest of this stock. So we've got our chicken done, our stuffing's done, our mushrooms are fairly hydrated. The broccoli is thawed. I just took some broccoli out of the freezer. I've got a tub of sour cream over there. I think we're ready to assemble very soon. I am gonna actually take some of the water that the mushrooms have been soaking in and add that for my last and final addition to my roux. It'll just add some really, really good umami kind of depth of flavor. Whenever I rehydrate mushrooms, I almost always try to find a way to use the water because it's just so packed with flavor. I don't want to add too much, so I think once we get this thickened up, we are good. We're going to be done, and then we finally assemble. All right, let's get this party started. This is the most fun part. So we've got our chicken. I'm just going to go ahead and add in the mushrooms. I'm going to squeeze out some of that water. I didn't get to use all of the water, but that's okay. I just don't want my casserole to be soupy, right? I want it to have some good heft to it on the fork or the spoon without being too liquidy. So that's why I'm squeezing it out. We're gonna add in some of the broccoli. I'm trying to take a lot of those smaller pieces, and any bigger ones I'm just breaking up. I have probably half of a canister of the Nancy's probiotic sour cream. So this is, I think, 16 ounces. So probably 8. If I need more, I'll get more, but we're gonna start here. And we're gonna put in our cream of, I have no need to save any of that, so I'm just adding all of that in. Oh, it smells so good. So good, y'all. The mushrooms, that's what I'm smelling, is the shiitakes. Especially the fact that we use some of that mushroom liquid in the roux. Ooh. All right, now I am gonna pour it into my casserole pan. It's really not hard to put together. And if you ever have leftover chicken from a roast chicken that you've made, this is also just a really good way to use it. It's different. Best part of all is the stuffing. So you want to cover it so that it's not going to seal the edges by any means, but you really do want to actually cover it. And you'll start to see the liquid kind of start bubbling underneath the stuffing in the oven, and that's how you know everything is fully heated through and ready to go. And you can put some foil on top if you'd like. I probably will do that. I'm gonna cook this for about probably 40 minutes, and maybe the last 10 minutes I'll take the foil off just to help crisp up this stuffing on top. Dinner is ready. Let's pull it out of the oven. I'm so excited. All right, I love this part. Bon appetit. It's warm, comforting. So delicious. Just like I remember. Sorry, Mom, but it's better. I'll see you guys next time.